Thank you, Gail. And thank you to your three speakers for providing such a helicopter view of the question of digital sovereignty. And I see that there are more and more questions coming through Slido, so please don't be shy. Keep sending them. We have 3 more sessions and plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions. So after we heard earlier today about the politics around Horizon Europe, it is time to speak about the implementation aspects of the next program for research. And to do that, Jean-Éric Paquet, Director General for Research at the European Commission, will respond to the tough questions by Richard Hudson, Editor-in-Chief and Vice Chair of the Board of Science Business. So, Richard, I think it's over to you now.
Thank you very much. Tough questions. Okay, well, I'll do my best. Jean-Éric, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Richard. Well,
I see you are in your office. Is that right?
I am indeed. Yeah, back.
Félicitations.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we are very, very careful, as you can imagine, within the Commission. There's a lot of mask wearing, but I'm alone in my office, so I'm good for this interview.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to plunge right in with the question on Horizon Europe. The budget. 80.9 billion isn't worth what it used to be. There's been a cut that has been decided by the Council, but has not yet been decided by the Parliament.
Indeed.
So first, just on a simple practical level, what would that mean for the program?
If we stayed with the budget as agreed by leaders, that's what you mean, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is a reduction as opposed to the Commission proposal. So
you're at 94 billion, I believe, ultimately.
Well, if you look in current figures, yes, it's quite significant erosion. I mean, of course, we also have the top up from Next Generation EU. Which means that the erosion is not quite as dramatic, but yes, it's a smaller budget. It remains bigger than Horizon 2020 by a measure, but it's a smaller budget than the Commission proposal. And so in the negotiations, I mean, in Council now, and then in trilogue between Council and Parliament and Commission, there will indeed be the question, how is this reduction, if confirmed after the Parliament came in, how is it then reflected across the various components? It's going to be, I think, a challenging discussion, because I think we could all argue, and I would certainly be comfortable in arguing for any component of the budget as it stands now to be justifiably increased, at least to the level of the initial Commission proposal. But obviously, this is a zero-sum game. So finding then areas to reduce is going to be rather very challenging. And I think in the Council, this is now quite visible. So I don't yet know how this will work out. And I very much hope we will have a positive discussion with Parliament, maybe with improvements on the overall budget. I'm very well aware of the ambitions of our partners in the European Parliament, which I think is very positive. So let's see where this gets the overall budget, and then how the budget distribution works. I mean, I think what also should be said, Richard, is that the order of magnitude remains, I think, comparable. So I think there's a lot of ambitions with member states in the Parliament, but also across Europe, also in industry, in research organizations, in university, shared by Commission teams working in preparing Horizon Europe, here in DG Research and Innovation, but also in many other parts of the Commission. And I think that by and large, these ambitions remain achievable. I mean, obviously, the Commission proposal, including the very significant top-up we had recommended for Next Generation EU, would have allowed here to really move to another level. This is now going to be more difficult, but I'm sure that we will be able to have very deep impact also with the budget in the of magnitude of what we have on the table today.
But if you only get the 5 billion from Next Gen for the Horizon Europe, how are you going to divide it?
Well, I think, I mean, in the Commission proposal, we focused on areas where we believe we need to focus for recovery and resilience. And these would, I mean, from the point of view of the Commission, I think be the same areas also in the reduced Next Generation EU. They were the health cluster, they were the industry and digital cluster, of course, the climate, energy, and mobility cluster, and then last, the European Innovation Council. So, I mean, that logic with the initial proposal, I think I mean, there's no analytical argument to change it now, even if it's reduced.
What about the ERC?
Yeah, well, the European Research Council, as the rest of the program, is indeed under real pressure. And I heard Jean-Pierre last night in the European Parliament. He is, as I am, extremely unhappy about it. Clearly,
he is the president of the European Research Council.
Yeah, of the Scientific Council of the European Research Council, and Jean-Pierre made a very robust defense of. EU funding making a big difference on blue sky, excellence-driven research in Europe, and I concur with him. Of course, he argues for one part of the budget convincingly. As I said early on, I could argue for each part of the Horizon Europe budget convincingly. I would argue. Don't test me, Richard. But the challenge for negotiators then on the budget distribution is going to be quite a challenge, which is where would you then find the resources to increase any distinct component of Horizon Europe? Of course, as said, the Parliament hopes to increase the overall envelope. If that was to happen, that would certainly facilitate the discussion.
Okay, well, we had before this session, before you joined us, we had a series of parallel workshops discussing, what could be done to improve technological sovereignty in Europe. And one of the themes that came through, several of them, including a session on aerospace, another one on health, another one on deep tech, everybody's saying this, is, well, you got to invest in early stage technology. You have to invest in discovery, blue sky. And did I just hear you say then that if the budget does not increase, you will not fight for more for this early stage research?
Well, I mean, early stage research is absolutely key. I concur with what you said. It's being funded in the European Research Council programs. That's one area where we do a very, very early stage research, not only, but very much. We also do very early stage research in the European Innovation Council under the Pathfinder. This will be very, very low levels of TRL, and some which will be, I think, very closely linked also to tech sovereignty. I think there are high expectations from many, including my teams and myself, and of course also my colleagues in DG Connect, Roberto Viola and others, that we can make a real difference with the EIC on AI, for example, including with the Pathfinder. And then, Richard, any part of Pillar 2 can also cover very low levels of TRL. Nothing requires us to spend Pillar 2 on high levels of TRL. So yes, I agree. We need
when you come to
also on that part of the research
calls. When you come to the actual calls and the work programs, then will you push the TRL level down?
I think we will have, that's what we are discussing now. I mean, you probably are aware that we're now finalizing the preparations of Horizon Europe. So we have the strategic plan, which is largely now emerging. I mean, no major surprises, but a nice alignment, if you want, between the legal proposal as it's now agreed between Parliament and Council, together with the new priorities of Europe, of the European Commission, but of Europe as well, with a very strong focus also on how to deal with COVID-19 and its aftermath. So that's the strategic plan. And on that basis, we will discuss in a couple of weeks at the Research and Innovation Days, we'll start to discuss work programs. I mean, this is where the discussion should take place, areas by areas. And I think we will probably find that there are, of course, different views on the level of TRL by topic areas. I mean, first of course, we need to agree on topic areas, but then we will probably have quite a broad discussion on that. And I would argue that we should not be prescriptive or the less possible, and then leave it to project proposers, consortia, to either come with a focus on low level of TRLs, or maybe with a more integrated approach, moving on a larger scales of these steps in the TRL ladder. This is not predefined in the view of the Commission.
So in these clusters and in the EIC, then, do you think that as a result of all of this, you will see, would you want to see more, a larger share of the money go to early stage research than it has hitherto? I'm asking basically, is your normative decision about what you would like to see?
No, I don't think Richard, I don't have a view on that. I don't think I need to have a view on that. I think what I need to ensure is that the program is agile and flexible, and that with key players, those which do research policy across member states and EU institutions, we form a view, and that this is then connected properly to needs of industry, which needs to tell us, industry and research organizations, universities also, and then they need then to tell us, well, we're in fact quite good now in low levels. We've done it. Now what we need to is move up. There will be other areas where they will tell us, yes, of course we can move up, but honestly, the basis is not really groundbreaking. Let's invest more in there. That's, I think, the way this should work. It should not be a commission staff telling you what the right proportion is.
Yeah, okay. I mean, because as it is, as a matter of fact, in the energy workshop that we had, the green workshop that we had, one of the suggestions was that the Commission should now be investing more public money in deployment of green technologies than hitherto. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of push in that direction. I mean, of course, deployment of green technologies in some cases requires some research investments. I mean, take hydrogen, for example. If you look at the catalyzers, which will really allow to make clean hydrogen and make a real difference and be credible in a market environment, yes, there needs to be more applied research, but then much of the deployment, even if it's in the higher levels of technology readiness, would certainly be picked up by markets, by industry players, maybe also by a number of other programs, including by programs under the EIB. So I think the argument in itself, we now need to deploy towards 2030 to make a difference, yes. Whether that then means that this is where Horizon Europe money goes in that area, not necessarily. Not to mention that, of course, we are now working towards 2030, where deployment is key. We also preparing the ground for 2050, when we need to be carbon neutral. And take here the example of aviation. I don't know if you discussed aviation during.
Yes, we did. We had an aerospace session.
I think you did, huh? So yeah. I don't know how it was discussed, and I'm sorry I couldn't participate or listen in. But in aviation, this is really the discussion. If you want the clean fleets flying largely or fully by 2050, you need to invest now in that research, and that is indeed possibly also rather lower level of TRL research, whilst at the same time also ensuring much more efficient aircrafts, which can progressively have an impact by 2030. So being groundbreaking and breakthrough is, I think, what we need and what we are promoting in the discussions, which will I expect to lead to the partnership on clean aviation. I mean, we'll know that in the coming weeks, but that delivers the planes in 2035, and so here we need a much more groundbreaking research as well, and a combination of the two is going to be probably the right one. But yes, there will be a lot of deployment from drawing, if you want, on the very remarkable research which has been done, including at EU level, in the last 10 years, which is great.
Okay. Well, first, a quick question further on the process of Horizon Europe planning. When will we see draft work programs?
I mean, we will discuss ingredients of the work programs already at the Research and Innovation Days, and then the first drafts will come in the autumn. I must say, I don't want to give a date now, because we are still in discussion. We also need to ensure that within the Commission, everybody comes together on that. So it will take certainly a few weeks. But as you know, the work programs are not going to be prepared by teams in the Commission sitting with experts in closed sessions. This will be a much more transparent process than in the past, of course,
Okay.
with technology, with involvement and information of also other institutions, Parliament in particular. And so this will be a process which we intend to kick off at the Research and Innovation Days. So this is going to be about essentially taking stock of the strategic planning and taking stock also of the public consultation which just took place. So we'd be really interested to hear stakeholders tell us, yes, you got it right. I hope this is what we will hear. But from that, an early discussion on how do we translate that in the first 2 years of the program, which will then feed straight into the work programs, which will come in draft form and certainly visible also for our partners outside the Commission, of course, before the end of the year. When they will be adopted, then of course depends on the formalization of Horizon Europe itself, depending on the MFF.
Okay, all right. Now, let's, if we may, let's turn to this issue of technological sovereignty.
Yeah.
This is something that is right there in the front of the German presidency's agenda. The Commission and the President von der Leyen have spoken often. You've mentioned it. The Commissioner is, anyway. This is a meme right now in European capitals. Technological sovereignty due to the COVID-19 crisis. A question that came up in various of the sessions is, how is this compatible, technological sovereignty, with being open to the world?
I mean, there is an apparent tension, but one which is not at all unsurmountable. I think it's a question of where the cursor is put. I think we remain keen that our research is open to the world. We believe that science is universal, and work on science should be as open as possible. And it's also the case for a number of more applied research efforts where we believe that good practices, breakthroughs in some part of the world should really be available and help the rest of the world move forward as well. And I think the green transformation is, I think, a particularly good example of that. So we remain keen on science and technology agreement, and of course on association policy, to be really reaching out and working globally. Well, now, at the same time, I think it is very true that we have in the last decades not necessarily on a case-by-case basis for partners or individual areas, we have not necessarily been analyzing deeply enough where cooperation might not necessarily be fully in our interest. And that is clearly an effort which member states and parliament expect from the Commission, an effort which the Commission intends to do. We have started that discussion already, and that I think will allow to calibrate, not across the board, but in given circumstances, will calibrate the research areas on which we will engage, and maybe also with a degree of limitations of partners with which we would engage in these areas. And
so that means
compatible with being open to the world.
That means no China?
No, we will certainly work with China. I think we have a lot to do with China, but we might have areas which I don't want to define today. The work would need to be done, and we would need a discussion with China as well. But there would probably be areas where it is not our obvious interest to work and share resources, results with China, but that's the case possibly with others as well. But there are then many areas where we are, of course, keen to work very closely with China. There is absolutely no reason not to do that.
Okay, well, I mean, this is an interesting topic because I remember when you became Director General in 2018, the early organograms that were circulating around Brussels of how you were going to reorganize RTD included a box for someone called Special Advisor for Technological Sovereignty.
Yeah.
So
the box is still there. The box is still there. The box is still there. I was just checking. The box is still there, Richard. We have not yet, also discussing it with Maria Gabriel, we have not yet identified the right person to do it. But yes, the box is there, absolutely.
So
that
this
was
is
18, that was 19.
Yeah, 19, sorry. So,
Yeah.
but this is an important issue for you then for a long time. So I guess my question is then, okay, practically, what does this mean for Horizon Europe on tech sovereignty? What will change? What's different?
Well, it means, as I said, that, I mean, already today, when we prepare a work program, but under Horizon 2020 as a legal base, this is extremely, extremely limited. We have the possibility to indicate in the work program that partners from some areas, from some countries, are not eligible for reasons notably linked to security. Now, we will have the possibility in Horizon Europe to do it as well. There are now ongoing discussions in Council, and this was discussed also in Parliament when it came to its first readings, as to whether we should not give a bit more space even to the Commission to do that narrowing of the scope for applications. As I said early on, this is not something which should be across the board. This would be completely counterproductive for Europe's research. But this is something which needs to be done with a much deeper dive and analysis area by area. So that's one change that will take place.
But I suppose research projects that are related to cybersecurity or
these are good examples where we need to be, I think, 5G, it's going to be more 6G for research, but yes, 5G, 6G, these are areas which are, or quantum, these are areas which are not easy areas, which does not mean that they are close by construction. They are not. But these are clearly areas where, and that's also what the Digital Europe program says, rightly, these are areas where I think we need to have a careful, deep look as we prepare work programs, and in discussion also with partners to see what is fully open and what is less open. So that's one.
Does that include health technologies also, like vaccine R&D?
I have not come across the question yet.
Okay.
It's not obvious that it would be. Maybe I don't think I should reply. I haven't come across that as an option. I think the work on COVID-19 and vaccines today, I mean, has a very strong geopolitical and geoeconomic dimensions, and that's what you're implying, Richard. And I'm with you on that. That's for sure. But at the same time, I think we absolutely need to ensure that the results of the work is shared. It would make no sense that we don't collectively, globally progress on dealing with the pandemic by holding back by region on research results. This would not be the direction of travel at all for Europe. So that's for work programs, if you want to cross in particular Pillar 2. What is also, of course, in discussion in Council and Parliament, and was already in the Commission proposal, is on Pillar 3 innovation. And this applies both to a normal call, but also applies to possibly association, to see whether this is fully part of the menu, if you want. And here again, there are very good arguments to say that innovation in Europe is nurtured by having in our programs also actors from other strong innovative places in the world. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you also have the argument which says that this part of the program is rather tightly correlated to our future productivity and competitiveness, and then maybe this is something which can be looked at in a more narrow way. This is an absolutely legitimate discussion, I find. What would be, again, not smart is to put in the text of a program for 7 years, that's the state of play. This is how it is for everyone. So we will have flexibility in discussion and implementation to see how, again, here we calibrate.
Okay, but then just to be clear.
On tech sovereignty, we are discussing, of course, European research here and Horizon Europe. So, I mean, there are two things to be added. The first one is that, of course, a lot of that discussion is a member state discussion, which we are trying to have in a consistent European format, and this is increasingly going to be the case. And secondly, tech sovereignty is also very much an industrial policy deployment discussion beyond research. And I think what has stricken everyone during the COVID-19 crisis is indeed our sovereignty in health technology, with the limits in terms of notably compounds for drugs. And this is something which we are now dealing with, and member states are dealing with, which is also beyond research, as is, for example, foreign direct investment screening, which is a legislation which now comes into force, which equips member states and EU institutions also with a new instrument beyond the research dimension.
So just to clarify that point you made on the EIC, then, for instance, about so
EIC, EIC,
I know EIC, exactly, yeah, the Innovation Council. Then, in the case of a like-minded partner country, let's say Canada or Japan, do you think that they will be restricted from not being allowed to enter into that program, or is it just?
I think we would firstly need to check if they are interested. I think that's going to be the first step. And then we would need to see what the economics of it is, how member states also then see it. So we would need to discuss it with our partners and discuss it amongst ourselves. Yes.
Okay. All right. Then another point that came up in the workshops was if you are trying to build tech sovereignty, there still is a number of handicaps in Europe compared to, say, the US or even China. And one of them that was cited was not enough networking possibilities for early stage and development beyond. There are many different fragmented ways in which researchers and investors can come together, but as one researcher put it, they're like a jungle. So is this an issue, a problem?
Yes. It's a complex environment. I mean, Europe is indeed a complex environment. That's correct. It's of course a particularly rich environment. On the flip side, I would argue, and I'm saying this for innovation now, tech sovereignty and innovation more generally. We have indeed different cultures, languages. We have one market, the internal market, which is much more integrated than sometimes we say. But we also have then a number of national specificities, and then behind all that you have very many diverse support systems which exist in member states, in regions, around universities, also around industry itself. So yes, I can see that this is a complex picture, and what we hope to see happen, but this was, I hope, discussed in that workshop, is that around the European Innovation Council, we also hope to bring innovation and tech ecosystems much closer together. And that the EIC, if you want, is a platform for that. I mean, we are not aiming at amalgamating them or merging all of them. They have distinct responsibilities and roles and complementarity sometimes. Maybe this can be promoted further also in terms of design. But what I think is the first step is to have this EIC as a platform to allow these ecosystems to really interact, and then for innovators, investors to be aware. And if you want, this also then provides the other added value that when you are investor in a member state, to an extent, more a startup or an innovator, you then start on that market. I think what is good with the EIC, including with such an effort on the platform, would be to convey the message that your market is Europe and the world, hopefully as well, but Europe. So yes, there's certainly space, including around the EIC fund for investors. I hope that they can also play a role in bringing the various instruments which exist at national level and at EU level more in sync. So I agree, but I also think that we are working on it across member states and Commission.
Okay, well, a related point is the European research area. This is an effort to, if you will, create a single market for European researchers and ideas and innovators, etc. But I think this has been in development for like 20 years, 30 years, actually. When do we see the plan?
I mean, the European research area, Richard, exists. It's indeed.
Well, it exists, but it is often commented. Yeah.
No, it does exist. It does exist, I think, very much so. It exists with a number of research programs across member states. It exists with many actors, which are national actors, which come together at EU level. I mean, university associations, EARTO, many others are giving a reality to the European research area. It exists also, of course, for a number of instruments for research organizations. And it also exists in a regular dialogue between member states and I mean, Commission particularly, to draw up more aligned research policy and research policy instruments. What is absolutely correct is to say that this is unfinished business. I mean, that's what Maria Gabriel says, and rightly so. This is unfinished business. It's unfinished business probably also because we, as you said yourself, there's probably space to do the European research area also with a greater hook into industry, into sovereignty, tech, innovation. But for the European research area treaty-based, there is much more which can be done to facilitate the circulation of researchers. There's obviously a lot of space to help member states develop their national basis for research, which then makes them full actors in that European research area. I mean, we need to continue to work with industry to help them find or to help them adjust the framework where this is relevant, or to convince them to invest more themselves, so that we progressively continue towards the 3%, which I think remains a valid objective. So, I think, I mean, the European research area is here and there, and European research exists. It's a big player worldwide. And in many cases, it's quite integrated and aligned. But yes, there's much more which can be done. And Maria Gabriel, her teams, ourselves, we are with colleagues across the Commission now finalizing the blueprint, as you know, which I hope can be available now soon. And it's going to be it's an effort which is really creating a lot of political interest within the institution that the Commission is, and that I think is particularly positive.
Okay. The related, well, there from Slido, there are a couple of questions that have come in that are basically what we would call about synergies, connection with other parts of EU programs to promote research and innovation. I know that when you started work on Horizon Europe, there was a greater effort to work with other parts of the Commission. How is that going? What will we see?
It's going really well. It's going really well. I must say, I'm really pleased with where we stand today. There's a little bit of fine print still in discussion, but we are really in a really different, I hope, different space. Let me just illustrate this with a couple of examples. I mean, firstly, Richard, you have synergies within Horizon Europe. I think this is not discussed a lot, but I very much expect that there will be very, very operational connections between the EIC and the EIT. I'm sure that there will be very common work between the EIC and the European Research Council. I mean, Jean-Pierre and Mark Ferguson have met, and there's a lot of synergies which can be found between these two seemingly different parts of the program. And then, if you want, we're also working, as you know, on partnerships, industrial partnerships, and we will ensure that in the legal text, there will be the possibilities for partnerships to join up for joint calls, joint programs, so that the research is really carried out in full synergy. So that's one dimension on which Horizon Europe with co-creation is moving us in another place. The other part,
go ahead.
The other part is research, regional funds, where over this period of MFF, there has been a very, very big effort, more than 40 billion allocated to the area in the countries benefiting from structural funds. This priority area remains for the future. And in terms of synergies, and this was confirmed in the deal by leaders in July, Richard, there will be the possibility for countries to transfer funding from their regional policy envelopes into centrally managed program, including Horizon Europe, therefore. And here, this could be used, for example, to fund the participation of a country in a partnership. We will, I hope, with that have much more meaningful participation of more countries in partnerships, industrial ones, but all of them. And secondly, the possibility, for example, let's take the hypothesis of the European Research Council, you have today projects which are good projects, excellent projects, but they're just under the budget possibility, right? So these are these famous seals of excellence. So today they can be picked up and under the new rules in an even easier fashion under structural funds in the country at stake. But imagine if a country has decided to transfer part of its envelope into Horizon Europe, they could then be picked up by the ERC itself or by the EIC itself. They then become ERC projects run under the ERC, which is in terms of impact label, a very different outcome. So this is where on synergies with structural funds, we are really going in a very, very, very right place. And then last, and I'm not going to elaborate, but I think this is also something which is really important, is that for all the other programs, we are with co-creation capable today to have this seamless discussion from research into applied research, maybe into partnerships and consortia and deployment with other parts of the MFF. And this is something which you will see a lot under recovery and resilience.
Well, actually, you know,
that's a lot of impact.
The Slido questions, the audience have voted their favorite question is basically on that. The question is, how will RTD impact or influence the next gen EU package well, basically, we began this discussion with you talking about that 5 billion that is at the moment all the council has allowed. But surely there must be creative ideas on how to make better use of it.
No, there's, I mean, the 5 billion are one dimension. I think that's the 5 billion need to be agreed in the budget decision, and that will then be, once this is agreed, implemented under Horizon Europe. But then beyond these 5 billion, you have the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is these 300 plus billion euros, which member state will implement to deal with their recovery and construct more resilient economies and societies. And as you know, from the Commission proposal and from our president, this is also about dealing with the digital and green transition. So recovery and resilience should be delivering also on these transitions, and both can be done at the same time. I mean, it's obvious for everyone to see that a green renovation program for buildings is going to be job creating and quite a bit. And there are many examples like that. In this context, research and innovation is, of course, being deployed already today in preparation of Horizon Europe, but also as an outcome of Horizon 2020, sometimes earlier programs in this deployment, as we discussed earlier on. So there will be a direct feed, if you want, into the recovery and resilience work. And I would also not exclude, but that is, I think also for member states to look into, I would also not exclude that member states might want to use part of their programs for more focused investments into capacities on research itself. Why not? But I think the main point is really that research and innovation, I hope, can drive with solutions, technology, knowledge, the transitions, and therefore build recovery and resilience. So I mean, we are part of the discussion, as you can see.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. We're going to, well, the R&I days that you mentioned is the September 22 to 25, is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, we were yesterday, I think we opened registration on Thursday last week. We were at 8,000 or 9,000 registrations. So
8,000 or 9,000?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's almost as good as a science business event.
There's interest. That's good. Let's see. But I think it's going to be, I think, really a key moment. We hesitated a bit to keep it because it's very complicated, as you know. But then this is when we want to really finalize the preparations of Horizon Europe. We want to do it with our partners across Europe and beyond. And so the Research and Innovation Days, Maria decided we have them. And so it's in 10 days.
Okay, well then people, you can find that conference online and register for it. So thank you very much, Jean-Eric. And we at Science Business will be with our news team and our network members looking to see very closely what happens next. Thank you.
Richard, thank you very much. À bientôt.
Bientôt.